seagulls follow the shore, it's because they think sardines will be thrown into the sea. Thank you.
And as we say now in my country, they brought the buzz and they left the buzz in front of the goal.
And the guy's talking absolute nonsense. Never heard so much rubbish in my life.
Normal men.
What do you mean, normal men?
We're just innocent men.
I'm telling you, don't back down, double down. Don't back down, double down.
It's the Tuesday ticket. We'll get used to calling it that one day, Jonathan. Welcome aboard the bus. Some of you for the second time tonight. What a performance by the judge tonight with author Matthew Marr. It was a fantastic show. You've got to give kudos when it was due, Jonathan, and the judge did one hell of a job reminiscing about the Celtic's first ever league title win. It was very good.
Absolutely. I'm looking forward to Phil doing a nostalgia of that one.
I'm sure Phil will have the notes just as long now. Anyway, good evening to you all. I've not been on since the weekend, and it's fair to say I'd had a few bevies, which was all part of the plan. But anyway, it's Tuesday now. The dust settles on the weekend. We can now look back fondly at another 3 points in the bag. We can look fondly at the league table, and we can get Jonathan to take it away.
Yes, Russell. Well, the big news this week seems to be around shares, which is what I've been hearing. It's about shares this week, Russell. Well, he's disappeared. He obviously doesn't want to listen to my introduction, but I'm going to do it anyway. And shares seem to be the topic of conversation throughout Planet Football at the moment. Rangers seem to be giving out more shares as part of their share issue, diluting the shares of many of the Rangers fans at the same time. But sharing has been a common theme this week, Russell. Sharing has been something that's been going on throughout Scottish football. Derek McInnes, for example, has been sharing the Delude 'em all tablets with Mickey Beale after he decided to go after the referee despite getting his arse handed to him at the weekend. You know, Celtic have been doing a lot of sharing of late. They've been sharing out beatings and smacking teams about for fun. Kilmarnock being the latest victims at the weekend. But I tell you what that all leads towards now, Russell. It leads towards a weekend where we could see the ultimate sharing possibility, because if Celtic were to get the 3 points on Saturday and Rangers were to drop points on the Sunday at Pittodrie, then that opens up the opportunity for a shared coronation next weekend when King Charles goes on the throne and gets his coronation. But the more important coronation would be that Celtic would be one win away from being champions. We're in the running now.
Oh, love it, mate. I know I didn't fall off my chair. My light thing fell off my screen. I kind of tried to catch it, and I just thought, you know what? I'll just turn off the camera while I try and readjust it. Jonathan, that was very clever. The shared theme there. That was very, very good. If I'd had any party poppers or confetti, I would have popped it off at the start, because here's to another 3 million, eh? Fuck it. Hey, that's only 10 million shares this month. They're having a slow month. I don't know. They make me financially sound after all. 10 million shares for that lot. That's fucking nothing. Do you know what I mean?
Oh, make all your money
Absolutely.
back on these shares. Make all your money.
Oh.
Worthwhile investment. Worthwhile investment, I'm sure.
Definitely, mate. But yes, Celtic were also sharing out beatings, as you say, Jonathan. They definitely were, all for all of 27 minutes anyway. Wow, that was top drawer football that we seen at the weekend. Before we get into it, all that good stuff, remember, do hit the like button. There's 59 of you live right now. Hit the like button, please, if you want. If you want to become a Boise Bus subscriber, completely free. There is a wee option there just below. Hit subscribe, you'll never miss a show. If you want to become a Boise Bus member, like Pam, like Phil McKinley, like Paul Dyatt, like Kevin 14, John Duncan, Scott Cameron, Ian McIntosh, Stephen Murdoch, Hoops Boy, San Fran Celtic. There's just so many, man. I can't go up the comments any further. But there you go. Thank you very much to all you who have become Boise Bus members. It's totally optional, $1.99, only if you want to do it. Anybody, if you don't, it does help keep the wheels on the road. Do you know what I mean? But yes, we enjoyed the first half at the weekend, and I think it was the first time we were talking about Celtic maybe being off form, even though they're on this 17 winning game streak right now. We've managed to find a way of going, we bit off the boil now, don't we? It just goes to show you the standards that we're holding the team to now. They've created this problem for themselves, to be fair. Do you know what I mean? By being so fucking good. So what can you do? But I definitely think we've seen that explosive side back to Celtic at the weekend, Jonathan. That's what we've seen. We've seen them back to going, try and live with us when we play like this. And it's not fair on Del McInnes or his shitey wee team to try and even attempt to do that. That's why I probably felt sorry for them and took the foot off the gas after under half an hour. But that weekend's display tells me a corner was turned still. I still think not a turn still, like that kind of one. But we turned the corner. Do you know what I mean? I think, if you can find a corner to have to turn in when you're on 17 games winning in a row. But you know what I mean? I just felt the nature of that performance in that first half told me they're just right back at it at the right time.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I think, that first half, or the first half an hour, it was looking like it was going to be one of those games similar to what Tannadice was like right at the very start of the season, where you were beginning to wonder, could this be the day that Celtic finally put 10 past someone? And then I think probably we'll all end up slightly disappointed with how the second half plays out, because it kind of piddles out into a bit of a non-event. But certainly, where that first half went, Celtic had got the job done. They'd shown their teeth again. Kyogo once again coming up trumps for the club. I think Celtic are now beginning to hit their form right when they need to as well. They're obviously, I think you've got to bear in mind against Kilmarnock there as well, it wasn't a full-strength squad. It was still a very strong starting 11, but, when Ange has all his players available, he would probably make a few changes to the 11 that actually started the game. But at no point would you have thought that was a threadbare squad by any stretch of the imaginations, or a weaker starting 11 than what he could have put out. And that's testament to what Postecoglou has built around the club. I think, as I say, all the players are hitting form at the right time. I think if we had our strongest full-on squad available for this game and had the depth to come off the bench as well, then I think that could have been easily a 6-7-8-1 sort of game. But I think, second half, as I say, we took our foot off the gas a wee bit. But at the end of the day, we've got bigger fish to fry than little Del Boys, Kilmarnock. And, you know, I think there is that possibility that we've got, you know, the Scottish Cup semi-final, and one eye is now going to be looking firmly ahead to that. I know we've got the game against Motherwell on Saturday, but the league is pretty much a formality. It's a question of when, not if now, for anyone that even the most, you know, loyalist of Rangers fans, the most staunch of Rangers fans, the ones that want to scream no surrender from the top of their lungs, have to be realising that time is ticking and the league title is about to be clinched once again at Celtic Park. And now all hinges on a game at Hampden for Celtic to potentially do what I think would be a truly remarkable treble if they were to get past Rangers. And for Rangers, it's all about trying to stop Celtic in the last chance saloon.
That's it. I mean, I hope you're not going to answer every question I ask you tonight in your opening gambit voice. You know? Is that where we're going now? By the end of every answer you give me, you just start going into that voice. I'm all for it. But you know, we're looking at the display, and we've already had a comment coming in for someone saying, you know, about the right hand side of midfield. Hacksaw, it was James D. How you doing, James? And he's saying, you know, Hacksaw can't play on the right. He needs to be cutting inside from the left. Well, we've got lots of strong options on the left. I think Maeda's best on the left. I think Jota's best on the left.
Yeah.
So it's a tough school for Hacksaw. But speaking of the right-hand side, there might be a reason why Ange wanting to get a feel for whether Hacksaw can cut it on the right, because the rumours are getting stronger again about rejected contracts and interest from the likes of Ajax and our young player Leo Abada. Leo, the numbers Abada, because that's what he provides. He is a silent assassin that way. Someone who doesn't necessarily start every game, does tend to feature in 90% of fixtures he's available for. And when he does, he tends to get goals and assists. It's what he does. Let's talk about the impact it would have on Celtic if we were to lose him this summer. We're all well versed in the fact we're going to lose a couple of players, right? Not because default. I just think it's going to be the way. If we're going to develop the team in the summer, Andrew's going to want a couple. He's going to cut it at some areas. Do you know what I mean? Trim the fat in some areas and get as much money as possible. Abada, for me, midway through a 5-year deal, with the goal return he's got, his age, the fact he's an international footballer already, I think that's the type of player you look at now and you go, if you're going to flip it, not the double down quiz flip it, Jonathan, if you're going to flip a player, he's at that timing now where you're going, any sort of signs that you might not be happy, son, any signs you don't want to do a new deal. And I like Abada, by the way. It's not I'm not chasing him at the door, but you could look at him and identify him as someone you could go, we could get a healthy couple of quid for you. And
yep.
I wonder if the stars are aligning that Leo Abada may well leave this summer.
It does seem like it could be going that way. There's certainly been a lot of talk in the papers, and usually I would just dismiss it. But, you know, you've got Sky even reporting it now that Ajax are apparently, you know, pretty interested. And there's certainly some mischief making, as far as I can see, going on with the agent, if not from Abada himself. I don't think Abada's the type to really be causing up as much of a stir, perhaps behind the scenes of perhaps the likes of Juranovic may well have been earlier on in the season, where I feel like he might have been more in Ange's ear. I think this is more coming from the agent than necessarily Abada himself. But I think, you know, the fact of the matter is, I know he's been carrying an injury, so we'll get a better feel for it in the next couple of weeks when Abada's back to full fitness, how Ange is going to react to this situation, because we know in the past he's not hesitated if he feels somebody's not quite at it or their head's in another place, that he will, you know, leave them out of squads, or at the very least leave them out of the starting 11s. And he's in a pretty good position there, that, you know, even though we maybe don't have as good an option on the right-hand side, he's got so many good wingers that he can adapt one of them to kind of play in that role, that he can kind of get away without having Abada in the first team. And that'll be interesting for me to see exactly where Leo Abada's future is at Celtic. I think that might become a bit clearer over the next couple of weeks, because I think he'll be due back to be in contention, if not this weekend, then certainly for the Cup semi-final. And if he doesn't feature in that, and there's no injury involved, then I think that is an indication of your answer come the summer, because Leo Abada is absolutely somebody that Postecoglou turns to in the big games. You know, he started plenty of them against Rangers in the past. And he certainly is somebody that if he doesn't start them, he would usually come off the bench in them to try and change the way games are going later on. So if he was to be left out of the Cup semi-final and there's no injury at work, then I think we'll actually have our answer in as early as a week and a half's time.
He's not always started, though, the bigger games, has he? I mean, it's not like he always starts.
He doesn't always start them, no, but I think he would always be in the squad. He would always be one of those players you would look to as either, if he doesn't start them, he's going to be somebody that can come on an impacted game. And, you know, the reason I'm talking about the Rangers one is because it's the biggest one left to play now this season in the Cup semi-final. And, you know, Abada's got a good track record against Borna Barisic at Rangers, and it'd be foolish not to take advantage of him if his, you know, head's in the right place. Liel Abada is somebody that if he doesn't start that game, it's absolutely somebody you have on the bench, because we all know the damage he can do to Rangers, because his goal return against them is up there with the best out of Ange's signings. If you were looking at it from a statistical standpoint, and Liel Abada stands up to any of the players that Ange's brought in this particular fixture. So for me, if Postecoglou was to turn around and completely omit him from the squad, then that would suggest that Liel Abada or his agent have already started making the sounds to Ange that they want out in the summer. And Postecoglou, as we've already seen in the January window, can be quite ruthless when it comes to situations like that. And that is why I would expect to have well, maybe not a full-on answer, but certainly if he was to go in the summer and he doesn't feature a week and a half's time at all in the squad, I think you've already got your answer. I think if he obviously if he wants to be in the squad, then it's a bit more of a grey area, of course. But Postecoglou's talked about this already, Russell. He's going to be getting rid of players if he doesn't think their heads are in the right places. Celtic fans are going to have to accept that sometimes the players that they might end up idolising end up having to move on. I think Liel Abada is certainly one of those ones who has been absolutely massive for us over the past couple of years. I wouldn't really want to see him go, but again, at the same time, if it's to improve the squad and you can get a good fee for him, then it's something that I think Celtic will look at. The question I have, though, is after the business we've seen in January, where I think, you know, people were surprised at, you know, Juranovic's transfer fee. I think people were surprised at Giakoumakis' transfer fee. Do you think Celtic are going to hold firm in the summer and they're going to be getting a more satisfactory bid in terms of Abada that they would actually, you know, make them sell him? Or again, is it going to be one of these cases where if the player is making noises that they want out, that Celtic will just get rid and perhaps undersell like they did perhaps in January with Giakoumakis and Juranovic?
Well, the things that are really similar about it for me is we're still, a month and a half away from the window opening and the noises have already begun. If you think you can get under the manager's skin and get an easier way to the exit door, or an agent thinks that on Abada's behalf, based on the fact that let it be known to put out wee signals that you want to leave, and they're pretty easy to deal with, then we won't get the fee that we think he's worth. My eye keeps watering, man. We won't get the fee.
Cry. It's not the end of the world if Abada goes.
I love you, Abada, man. My nose is tickling, man. It keeps going up to my, I don't know what's going on. I was cutting onions earlier, so I don't know. Maybe there's one stuck up my beak. I don't know. But Liel Abada, for me, would be a player, if you were just saying general terms, I think he's someone you should be looking to get with, like I was saying at the top of the show, age factored in, goals to games at a club like Celtic now, international caps, length of term left in his contract. I think when you've got to factor all those in and go, that's 15 million plus to a cash-rich club. We're cash-rich, right? Folk don't want to admit it, but for in Scottish terms in particular, we're extremely cash-rich. It's that would be the sort of what I'm looking at. However, I'm beginning to feel like we're seeing that movie again that we seen with Juranovic. We knew fucking by September, I went, he'll be gone in no time. You could just tell. Giakoumakis less so, but we also started realising that if you can't get in the team, like even when you score 2 goals and Kyogo doesn't score for a few weeks and you still wouldn't get a look in, that's going to upset the big man eventually. And I do think a template can be formed sometimes. When you look at the fees those two guys went with and the lack of fuss, the lack of determination on Celtic's part to hold on to either, whilst that might be fair play, do you know what I mean? Just be ruthless, get rid of them. It can also go the other way, where some players will sit there now and go, there's a formula you can use to get yourself out of Celtic Park quickly. And you won't need to be held, you won't need, the club won't hold your fee to ransom, or other clubs to ransom over fees, etc. And that side of it makes me think, if you're talking about what fee we would get from, that it will be underwhelming. Dare use that word. But I think it will be. I do see what Brown Warrior's saying. He's, 12 million plus get one of those big those big frimpong sell-on fees attached. And for that, I totally understand that argument. But I don't know. I think that comes with a risk as well. I think we should be able to be strong enough and have the courage of our own convictions to go, we've got an asset. If you want to buy him, pay up or fuck off. But I just wonder if these stories build up for the next 6-7 weeks, whether any clubs that are interested might just look at January and think, do you know what? You can get a player out of Celtic cheaper than what you would have thought.
Well, yeah, I think that's a fair point. I think Celtic perhaps have made a rod for their own back on that part of things. I think when I'm looking more along the lines of clubs like Ajax potentially being interested in, buying somebody like Abada, you've got to look back on 12 months ago where Calvin Bassey, was seen as, one of Rangers' best players, and Ajax came in and they did pay good money for the likes of a Calvin Bassey who's coming from the same league as a Leo Abada. So I do think there is scope there for clubs to spend the money if they think the player is valued high enough. It just depends on how Celtic go and approach this bit of business. If it's just going to be a case that Celtic are going to look at this and think, we need to get him out of the building because he's wanting out of the building, then they're of course going to end up underselling them, in my opinion. I think if Celtic can stand strong to their convictions and back it up based on what Abada has brought to the table over the past couple of years, and his stats do all the talking for him, then they should be quite comfortably looking at, getting a really good figure for him. 15 million plus, I would agree, would probably be your sort of starting point, and you try and take it from there, particularly if there's Premiership interest, because we all know how inflated the English Premier League is when it comes to pricing. So there is that option.
And it's not just the EPL, though, is it? I mean, and rightly, people are doing the comparison with the Calvin Bassey money that Ajax paid last year.
Yeah.
I mean, that's the said club recently linked, as you say, on Sky Sports and stuff like that tonight. Like, for Abada, and you're going, well, hold on now. Let's get one thing clear as well. I can't imagine Rangers' bargaining position was even in the same stratosphere as what Celtic's is, right? We all know that for a fact. And yet they managed to hold off and get £18 million for him, they reckon. Not that it made any odds. Who cares? Back to the shares. But when it actually comes to us, if we're looking at a club like Ajax, you just go, we know you've got dollars in the bank. We know you're willing to spend money if you've identified a player. Then they come to us for cheapos, no chance. And that's not then comparing necessarily apples with oranges either, because we're both in the same sort of backwater league as it will be looked at in the other leagues as in Scottish football. But I just wonder if, Ajax are linked with us or we're interested in making a bid. Do you think they would start the bidding higher than what, maybe even we would expect, because they've got form for it? Or do you think it's once bitten, twice as shy, and they think, fucking, hey, come on. Nobody told us we thought he was better than that boy we paid 18 million for. And it might put them off spending the money. Two ways, I suppose.
Yeah, I think there is two ways, and I've not really been following how Ajax have been doing this season, but by all accounts, I have heard that Bassey's not had the best of times of it over there this season, which of course is then going to mean Ajax are going to think twice if they're going back into the same league as to whether or not.
You've not been following the Eredivisie?
I've not. No, I've not.
Oh, the Eredivisie, one of the top leagues in Europe.
Yes, well, I've not been following the Eredivisie as close as I normally would. No, but if I'm looking at it, I think when Ajax are considering Calvin Bassey, then they're going to look at that and think, well, we've maybe not got value for money here. So it comes back to the point of, well, if we've already went into this league once and it's not really worked out the way we expected it to, and then we're having to go back into this league because we think we've identified somebody else, they're going to try their arm and get them a bit cheaper, particularly when Celtic, as I say, have already shown previous for it in January in terms of not being shy on getting people out the door if, those players want to move on. And, Postecoglou turning out and saying that in his conference back at the end of last year at the AGM suggests that is, something that they could end up looking at again. So I think, if we're looking at Abada going to Ajax, I would fully expect Ajax to try and get him far cheaper than they were willing to pay for Bassey to begin with. And then it'll be a test for Celtic as to how much they rate Liel Abada and how much resilience they're willing to show to try and get a better deal for him. Because I'll be surprised if Ajax don't try a low ball bid or whoever it may be in the summer, because let's make one thing sure. One thing I am convinced of is people are going to be bidding for the likes of Liel Abada and probably others as well over the summer, if we're being brutally honest. There's a lot of players.
Couldn't agree more.
Yeah, there's a lot of players in our team that have shown over the last couple of years that they could do a fine job for many different clubs, both in England or indeed abroad, if that is where they wish to go. So, Celtic have to start standing firm, because let's say they do let Abada go, Russell, for, let's say it's an Arbot low bid and it ends up being a £7-8 million, let's just say for argument's sake, about half of what we're really wanting for him. That then sets another precedent that then when a Tati ends up wanting to go? What if when Jota ends up wanting to go? Are you then going to be able to command, your 20 million plus figures that we've seen Celtic are capable of getting before in around those numbers? It's not impossible to get those numbers. Now, it's actually not a substantial amount of money in the grander scheme of the footballing context in the footballing world. It's a lot of money in Scottish football terms, £20 million. But, in England, that's like spare change. And a lot of European clubs, that's not a lot of money either.
And bear in mind, we're not selling to a Scottish club, so they can take that argument and run with it as far as I'm concerned. We're not selling to another Scottish club, do you know what I mean? So we know what money you've got, time to flash it. But it'll be interesting to see what happens with the Abada. I just can't help but feel there's just a wee bit of similarities now beginning to occur with the couple of major departures that we had in January. I just hope that we don't see a similar movie to that one. Anyway, Jonathan, it looks like we're in a parallel universe, right? In a parallel universe, Celtic are competing at the top of the SPFL in the Champions League. We've got a rival competing second in the SPFL, also in the Champions League, and sold players like Bassey for more than what we managed to sell two of our players in January combined. When will the ball be picked up by the media as to what's going on in our top flight? Now, I don't want to be always focusing on what's going on over there, but they make it impossible for you not to be acutely aware of what the hell is going on over the neighbour's fence, as Ange doesn't like to look over. We're allowed to. And I just can't believe today, for the second time in April, there's been another share issue. This is purely a keeping the lights on job. There is a story there. I don't know what it is, but I'm not a paid journalist. Do you know what I mean? I work full time. We come on here and we speak for an hour about football, with Scottish football, particularly, obviously, in the main Celtic. But when your rivals are just fucking acting in any way, shape, or form we were told at the start of the season, microscope under Rangers by UEFA. I mean, are they that desperate they're just going to need to roll with the punches with UEFA right now? Is it a case of we don't actually think that UEFA thing means much and we're just going to do it? Is it just the brown bros swaggering up the street, not giving two hoots and doing what they want? What's going on? Well, we have a rival beside us that clearly have revenue streams nearly as high as Celtic's over the last 12 to 18 months, and yet, again, reduced themselves to two share issues in the space of a month, and this has twice been delivered by the Daily Record, who'll probably be next issuing share issues just to stay afloat.
Oh, they'll be buying them.
But They released the headline twice this month, and both times, cash boost. Cash boost is the terminology they're describing this as. And what was it? Richie said in the group chat, I've just pawned my telly for 20 quid. A good wee cash boost for me, though. Like, this is insane. And it feels to me like no one in the media wants to look at it. Are we in a territory again where nobody's learnt from the mistakes, not least the club or the company, whatever you prefer, but they've not learnt from the mistakes. And secondly, you've got a compliant media that sit there and say, hee-haw. They refuse to look at the story. They refuse to actually say, shine a wee torch on it and go, it's pretty peculiar that they find themselves in that. I get fucked off, Jonathan, when I get to the stage. We're arguing constantly on here. I'm not arguing, but debating here on wage structures at Celtic and why it's so important. And I'm saying, well, we need to push the boat out a wee bit. But everything's been done, even from a fan. It's not even our money. Well, it is our money, but you know what I mean? Like, it's not our bank balance. We're romantic football fans. We're allowed to be a wee bit, oh, go on, let us dream and go buy Jordan Larson or whatever it may be. And we're allowed to say all that stuff. But even then, I felt the debates, when it was people like me getting carried away with stuff like that, I was still tempering it with, we need to be within our means at the same time, you know? I just feel like it's one rule for us, and it's just carte blanche over there. See if they've signed guys in January, which it does seem apparent now they couldn't afford. That's the exact same definition of what cost them first time round. And those two players, had they been any good, sorry, Todd and whoever the other one is, Raskin, if they were
He
any
looks like he'd be
good,
quite good on the dance floor, though, down the food bar, Todd. He was looking like he had a wee bit of a shuffle about him.
I could be doing one of his wee ribbons for my hair. But I just think, like, him and Raskin, just say they had came in and been ballers, right? And Rangers somehow unexpectedly go on and they were to win that league and get that guaranteed Champions League money. Does folk want to wake up then and go, wait now, they couldn't actually afford to have those two players? Because it seems to be, since they've brought in players in January, that's where this share issue stuff's now happening come April, because they can't see out the season. How's this acceptable? You've got to be able to spend within your means to an extent. You can't just keep doing all the stuff that cost them last time round and cost us league titles, may I add, more importantly from our point of view. And potentially, it was never going to happen with those two plant pots they've signed. But in general, it could have, had they just managed to hit the ground running and be, really good players. It looks to me like they've spent money again in January. They couldn't actually afford. Shit's coming down the pipe by the time you get to April. 2 more share issues. The one thing UEFA's meant to be watching you for doing. Why we shouldn't be up against all this. Everything should be fair. And if you can't afford it, you can't do it. It just doesn't feel like we're up against a fair entity again. And as I say, it's all good while the going's good for Celtic. But if that had went the other way round for January onwards, I'm not saying I thought it would. I don't think it would have. But I'm just saying hypothetically, it did. I think we'd be raising our eyebrows a wee bit more and taking more of a keen interest.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I think when you're looking across the city, it seems as if they are not learning from their mistakes. And if you don't learn from history, you are doomed to repeat it, is how the old saying goes, I believe. And there does seem to be a case that they can get away with an awful lot more than they perhaps should be able to. It certainly looks that way from the outside looking in. I think when you look at what the SFA are like in terms of financial management and financial fair play, I just think they've got a very non-existent approach to it, to be perfectly honest with you. It doesn't seem to be something that the SFA take any interest in whatsoever. And, I think the duty of care has to start with them because of the fact, they've seen what happened, with Rangers 10 years ago, roughly. From their point of view, they want to have the league having the two Glasgow clubs in the top flight. So they've got a duty of care to do that. And that is, what, unfortunately, the broadcasters, etc., and everybody else wants sponsorships. All of that thing is marketed around having Celtic and Rangers both there. And if the SFA aren't doing their job properly to ensure that Rangers are towing the line and not making an arse of it for themselves, and then on top of it, messing up potentially commercial deals, then Rangers are going to keep pushing them. So I think the buck stops a little bit with the SFA on that, because Rangers are just really going to keep pushing and pushing until such time as they get told, hang on a minute. Now that hang on a minute, and you're going to have to rein this in, and there's going to be punishment for the actions you've taken, isn't going to come from the SFA. That'll end up coming from UEFA further down the line, because they're already got a notice in with Rangers, which we found out about last year. They're going to have to be looking at their accounts over the next few months again, because they've now had to be submitted to UEFA, I believe. So that's again something that Europeans governing body might take a dim view of, and it'll be interesting to see how much of an insight they have into that, and whether or not they come back with anything off that. But as well as that, you're looking at it, and you do have to say, if Rangers are doing things that they shouldn't be doing in terms of financially trying to gain an advantage that they otherwise couldn't have, then it does go back to exactly what has happened in the past. And we all know how pissed off we all were about it when that all came to light, in 2011, 2012, when we found out, there's a few championships in there that Rangers won by such fine margins that,
exactly.
If you were looking at those league titles, like, your ones in 2003, 2005, and, 2009 as well, all last day of the league seasons we lost. And, fine margins, like being able to afford players that you otherwise couldn't afford, always is going to play into effect in that. And, obviously, I would imagine Celtic have to have a bit of concern behind the scenes over things like this, as well, Russell, because we've seen what it can do from our side of things, because not only are we losing out on the league titles, but as I say, we then lose out on, potential commercial deals, because this whole domestic football is all marketed around Celtic and Rangers, whether people like that or not. That is how they've marketed it, and that's the only way the SFA see things working. So if Rangers are going to just be able to do whatever they want to do, and there's going to be no repercussions for their actions, and they're just going to keep pushing. And it comes a point where somebody's going to need to push back. It's not going to be Celtic, but it needs to be the SFA. And if the SFA don't do it, UEFA most certainly will. And there's a reason why these share issues are happening at the end of the day, because there is something going on behind the scenes at Ibrox that nobody knows anything about.
Yeah, 2 in a month, mate. Let's just be honest here. When you actually see the money involved, do you know what I mean? That's degenerate as fuck all. Do you know what I mean? Like, that's to pay bills. No two ways about it. It's to keep the lights on, as people like to call it. And it's all fun and games when you're top of the league. But, I've got a long memory, not just Martin O'Neill. I've got a long memory as well. And I just think, like, nah. If we go down that road again, it's like, we go down that road again, make sure you can at least look yourself in and say, well, we called it out. We had a podcast. It's only 200 odd folk live right now or whatever. It's a tiny wee smidgen, but I would rather be able to look myself in the mirror and go, oh, fucking, for the tiny amount we know, and we are not journalists, remember that. I'm glad that we've at least got the bollocks to say, something's fucking happening there. Anyone want to take a look who actually gets paid to do sports journalism?
Well, it seems like it comes to the journalism and all that sort of side, though they've got them under their thumb, don't they? Because, you already see acts of that out of Ibrox.
Cash
BBC
boost.
have been banned. BBC have been banned, from entering the building for a number of years following what happened the last time they were in financial crisis, because BBC reported the truth. They got banned. Chris Sutton, for example, is not allowed to set foot inside Ibrox because they don't like the narrative he projects at. And it's pretty much a case, if you've got anything bad to say about Rangers Football Club, then you're going to not get access to the football club. And the newspapers, because their circulation numbers are down so badly, they need to keep Rangers on side so they can actually, get access to the press conferences and everything else. But there should be journalists out there that are able to report on stories, because it's big news if there is something going on there that people should want to know about. And, if you're a journalist, that's what you're in that profession for. That's your job, is to go and find these juicy stories. It's not to just go and, report whatever pish Mickey Beale's telling you on a Friday in his press conference about referees being against them for God only knows how many years. It's to go and actually find the stories that people aren't talking about. But as far as I'm concerned, when you're looking at the media side of it, it all falls under this fact that Rangers have this way of intimidating the media, so they all fall in line, as far as I can see anyway, because we've seen the examples that they just don't let people into Ibrox if they don't play along with their narrative. And the papers need Rangers more, than the other way round. So I think that plays a factor, of course, and it just feeds into this fact that Rangers just really can do whatever they want as a result because they're not being held to scrutiny by anyone.
Well, this is it. But the good thing is, being a Celtic fan, everything we do is above board, and we have big sponsorship deals and kit manufacturing deals, Jonathan, all that sort of carry on. But I want to talk to you about that as well because there's been, I think it's footy headlines. I'm going to bring it up on the screen because I'm just not sure about this potential away kit. Don't know if you've seen it yet.
Oh, I have. Yes, it's the green and black sort of hoops one. Yes, I have seen that.
Footy headlines have done it a few times. I'm sure they tend to get it. They tend to be quite accurate. I don't get it. What's everyone in the comments thinking about that? I'm not the biggest fan.
I'm not a big fan of how it's set out. And to be blunt, I think there was talk that has been refuted, I think, in the newspapers that this isn't going to be the actual legitimate kit, but I'm hoping that is correct and that it doesn't turn out to be the legitimate kit, because I think Adidas could do a lot better than that. I think from what I was looking at with Adidas, I would presume they would have went down the Australia route, next season, because it seems obvious to go for a golden away kit, with Postecoglou's
With the wee
sort
green
of
trim.
colours with the green trim. It sells itself. It's obvious what to do there as far as I'm concerned. I don't know why that wouldn't be the one that's being considered, because I thought when they were actually bringing out the additional kits, that one with the clover that came out only a few weeks ago, I thought that might have ended up being something like along the Australia sort of themes, but it would make more sense to use that as your template for your away kit next year, because the fans have all bought in so much to Postecoglou that it's an absolute no-brainer. I don't feel that kit, that green and black hoops, is really offering anything. It looks a bit amateurish. To me, it doesn't really look like it's doing very much for anything. It's almost like just pretty much replacing the white on the home kit with black, and it just looks tacky.
Yep.
And again, I still think you could have issues with that when you're visiting the likes of, for example, St Mirren, where you end up having to find another kit to wear there, because I still think that would clash if you were going to Paisley, and you're in the same position that you were this season, where you're having to find kits that can actually work, or asking St Mirren to play in their away kit to do it. So I'll be interested to see what the comments are, Russell, but I don't think there'll be a lot of appetite for this one.
It's not the most positive in the comments, I'll be honest. I don't think a lot of people are that impressed. Big clamour for the Bumblebee from Pete Scully music. Adidas Bumblebee would be pretty cool, I'd imagine. Nearly as good as the Boise Bus Bumblebee, which you keep forgetting. Still at my house.
I know, I was actually down at your flat as well on Saturday, and I was like, I'm going to come and get that, and I'll have that on from now on. And then what happens? I end up having a couple of drinks, and I end up forgetting to even get it. I got all the way home. I was like, I'm sure there was a reason I went round there. It wasn't just to beat you at ping pong. And then I was like, oh, for Christ's sake, I forgot that top again. Dearie me. So, yeah.
You had to get that in. You beat me at ping pong. You had to get that in.
Yeah,
you had to find a way. Yeah, I just think they should be doing a yellow one again with a wee thin green trim. That'd be a classy move. Jonathan, how delighted are you for the resurgence of Matt O'Reilly?
Yes, I'm very pleased to see him back in amongst the goals at the weekend. I think he was looking much more like his old self, and I think it's much needed with the big games coming up, or now at the business end of the season, and you want players like Matt O'Reilly proving just how good he is, because for me, on his day, he's good enough to get in that starting 11, and it's a strong area of the park now, the middle of the park with McGregor, Atati. Aaron Moy, I think, obviously has went a little bit off the boil in the last week or so, but he's shown, certainly since coming back from the World Cup, what he's all about as well. So, I think O'Reilly's going to have to make sure his game and his form stays high if he's wanting to play in the big games coming up, but certainly did his chances no harm whatsoever at Kilmarnock. And I think it's been a bit of a tough season for O'Reilly. I think, he started so well when he first came in at the club, and perhaps the expectations that it was always going to be a case there was going to be a bit of a lull in form, which I believe it just is. I believe form is temporary, class is permanent, and I believe he has got the class to be a very, very strong player for us in the coming weeks towards the end of the season. I was very pleased to see him, as I say, back amongst the goals, and just looked a lot more lively and finding pockets of space again against Kilmarnock. And I would imagine, he's going to get game time again at the weekend. And it's huge for him because, it's his last opportunity to make sure that, he shows that he has found his form again if he's wanting to be playing in the Cup semi-final, the following weekend after that. So it's one of those ones for Matt O'Reilly, but I've been quite impressed with him, Russell. I have to say I've been pretty pleased with how he's managed to bounce back from what I'd say was a lull in form since the new year.
Yeah, I think it was a lull in form combined with the fact that Aaron Moy had a real surgence, and for whatever reason, we feel compelled as a support, I think, at times to just go round the houses. You just go round the houses and pick a player who's out of form. Do you know what I mean? Just go round the houses, and Matt O'Reilly was guilty of Aaron Moy being in form on the main.
Yeah.
I get, okay, his form maybe dropped off a tad. Nowhere near to some of the.
If he could hit a fucking penalty, that'd be good. That would be good if Matt O'Reilly could hit a penalty as well. Because I didn't know what's going on with this team. Speaking of Aaron Moy, because he seems like the only fucking guy who can hit a penalty in this whole Celtic squad. That was something I didn't even touch upon. Was Kyogo misses one at the weekend, and I actually thought he'd have missed it. Kyogo, and I seen him setting up and smiling. I was like, "You're missing this," and he did.
Yeah.
And
he doesn't want the time to think.
He doesn't like it. There's too many players, I think, in our squad that are kind of like that. They're much better when they're just on instinct. But can you actually think of a time, Russell, where we've had so many players that you just wouldn't fancy taking a penalty? I mean, God forbid we ever end up in a penalty shootout with this team, because we'll probably lose fucking 3-0.
It's true. If we end up in a penalty shootout that semi-final, I'd
be saying it's fucking curtains. Before it's even started, I'd be like, well, you may as well just get another pint in and call this a day.
Aye, it's true that it's a weird one. I'm delighted though as well for Matt O'Reilly. I think he's just adding goals again now. Do you know what I mean? Like he was scoring the tail end of last season. This year he had the most shots on goal. I think he hadn't scored one, but he's top the assist charts consistently. As Rab McNair comes in and says, he's still top the assist charts. And I thought his first touch before that assist against Rangers was a real turning point. Maybe he's probably like, I don't even know what everyone's talking about. I didn't need a turning point. I was fine, mate. But if there were to have been a necessary turning point in his form, I think that first touch alone was it. I think that was a real touch of class when it matters as well. And then against Kilmarnock, he scores two beautifully selected finishes, and he goes in with a bit of form in it this weekend. And of course, the semi-final next week, we'll spend a hell of a lot of time on the hype, as we like to put in the title when it's Celtic Rangers game. We'll be putting hype in capital letters at the end of it. And Matt O'Reilly, I think, will be a huge focal point of the conversation, because it'll be interesting to see if Moy is back in any sort of fitness, where the pecking order lies, because I don't think you can play them both. I don't think you can go Moy and O'Reilly. This is not because it's not a slight on Aaron Moy or anything. I just think sometimes the combinations need to be right as well. And I liked what I seen from young Iwata. I liked what I say. Young, he's 26. I like what I seen of him at the weekend again. I thought he looked really, really comfortable, and he's someone who plays two positions like Callum McGregor. Although Callum McGregor used to play the number 10 under Rodgers, though that ain't happening again, right? I don't think, unless really necessary. Not because I'd be against it. I just think those days are done for whatever reason. It's not because he's old. He's 29. It's just because his whole demeanour and the whole way he plays, I think, is adapted and developed and grown into a different sort of role in the team. So you've got McGregor who can play 6 and 8, and Iwata, who looks to me just as comfortable playing 6 or 8. He wants the game in front of him. I wouldn't put him further forward either in the number 10, but I think he's definitely going to be a bit of an ace in the pack in terms of, oh wow, I didn't know he was capable of that. See the through ball he plays for Kyogo when he falls on his arse, and you go, fucking hell, that came out of nowhere, and it was just absolutely perfect. I was going to say it skimmed off the grass, but it was on fucking AstroTurf. Unbelievable.
Yeah, I think Iwata is certainly going to be in contention, both at the weekend coming up and, if he puts in a strong performance and he's given himself a chance in the semi-final, you're really only looking at one position to fill in the centre of the park if everyone's fit, because McGregor and Hatate are guaranteed starters, provided Rio Hatate is back in time for it, which I believe he probably will be. And that then leaves you, if that is the case, McGregor and Hatate, then you've got to make a choice between O'Reilly, Moy or Iwata for your other choice in the midfield. And I think, if you're looking at it from that perspective, if Matt O'Reilly is able to follow up on his performance at the weekend with another strong display against Motherwell on Saturday, then I would suggest that would point me towards giving O'Reilly the nod for the Cup semi-final, because I think you have to look at on form. And, it's not a slight on Moy, because Moy was the right choice for the League Cup final earlier in the season, and that paid dividends. I think the good thing about it is, I think Postecoglou's got options there, but I think if we're looking at it on form at the moment, that's what I would be basing that final selection pick on. And Matt O'Reilly's just showing a little bit more than Aaron Moy at the moment. I think Iwata will probably be more somebody that will come on, if Celtic can get themselves in front to try and tighten things up as the game progresses next week. You never know. He might throw curveballs. He might throw curveballs in there. And, a lot depends what happens at the weekend as well, because if one of them has, an exceptional game like an Iwata, then it might be very hard to drop him. So you've got to look at Motherwell and think, well, that's another opportunity there for a couple of players to kind of stand up to that. And Russell, and, with Motherwell coming up at the weekend, I wouldn't be surprised if there's a couple of changes to the regular starting 11 again there. Just maybe to wrap one or two up in cotton wool. Just ahead of obviously the Cup semi-final, because we know the league is going to be won. We also know at home to Motherwell we can probably afford to make a couple of changes and probably still get 3 points. So I think if you're doing all that, Russell, and he makes a couple of changes, then that gives another opportunity there for somebody perhaps we're not thinking about at the moment to perhaps make a claim for a starting spot again next weekend.
You never know. You never know. Well, it's that time, Jonathan.
Getting towards the business end of this.
Phil McGinley!
All right.
What's happening?
All right, guys, how you doing tonight?
Always good to see you, Phil. Always good to see you.
Good stuff, lads. I'm excited for this one. It's getting to, as you say, business end of the season in real life and the business end of a Sutton Death. Because it's getting close now. Oh boy.
It's not. You're just saying it for the dramatic effect to make it relevant. It's not. Is it 16-14?
14-12. There is 2 points in it.
14-12, 2 points.
14-12. There's 2 points. 2 points in it. Yeah, so it's getting closer, because it was once 5 points and it's now down to 2. And
I don't think
Russell's been getting a little bit nervous.
I don't think I've ever smiled like you do when you're getting beat. I've never smiled at that in my life when I'm getting beat. I don't like getting beat.
You don't like getting beat. The fact you threw a ping pong racket at me on Saturday shows as much.
Oh my goodness. More information than we need to know that what goes on in the Boyce's household. There you go. Throwing ping pong rackets at each other.
You did, Danny. You did.
You deserved it.
I mean, to be fair, at least on this, I'm safe from any cuts and bruises when I win at this game, because you're a safe distance away.
I didn't realise I threw it back at you.
I don't actually know if you threw it at me. I think you threw it in frustration, but I was awfully close to my head.
I've been in here like 3 weeks. I'm throwing bats about. That's just not good. It's not good. Anyway, my comments are off.
Yep, comments, of course, off, gentlemen. Of course, because we are getting to, it is getting quite, close now. It's a business end. I have actually got a new graphic as well, because this might be needed over the next few weeks. I've actually got a wee VAR check just in case.
Love it.
Oh, very good.
Like last week when we had to go to the Sierra Leone, Mo Bangura.
I can't believe we went to VAR on that.
Had to do a wee VAR check on that. So I might need it at some point over the next few weeks.
I can't get
Mo Bangura. It's like an absolute shocker. It's the worst thing I've ever seen in my life.
I know. That was because you keep moving the times of the show. My yin and yang was out there, man. 6 o'clock on a Tuesday. I knew I still had like 3 hours to entertain myself before I went to bed. I was like, what am I actually going to do? I was trying to stretch out the quiz. That's what I'll do. and go for the obscure one.
Watch Mo Bangura's best bits on YouTube.
Jeez, hard pressed to find any there. But yeah, just in case we're going to need any VAR checks over the next few weeks, I've got a graphic ready and everything for it because it's getting that close. But yes, it is time for Sutton Death. It is currently 14-12 to Russell. And as Jonathan said a few weeks ago, it was 5. So he's on a wee run of momentum here, so he needs to keep it going because he's never actually led at any point as well during this series. But as he has said, he just needs to be ahead at the end, so that's his strategy, it seems, and we are getting close to the end. 7 weeks to go, folks.
No point being leading during the way. No point being leading during the way.
So let me just get the old music going, and then we are good to go.
Come on, boy, say.
All right, you sound like fucking Delia Smith there. Come on, let's be having you.
Yeah.
Let's be having you. All right, Delia.
Okay, so you guys can hear me okay? Yep.
Yes.
And I can hear you, and nobody in the chat is saying anything otherwise. The volume isn't going crazy. Okay, cool. Right, Jonathan, obviously you won last week, so do you wish to go first or second?
First, please.
First, I had a feeling that would be the case. Okay, tonight's question is a very nice 19 answers, potentially. So, quite a lot to choose from. And the question is, there's always a point to prove when Celtic lock horns with a team from the English leagues. So tonight's question is to simply name any opponent from England's top 4 divisions that Celtic have played in any game from 2010 to present day. Just a little thing, just a wee caveat this. Listening to the pre-season roundup on episodes of Bustalgia would be very beneficial to this question because I do usually go through who we played.
Yeah?
Yep, any game from 2010 to present day against a team from England's top 4 divisions. There are 19 answers.
Okay, I shall start with Manchester City.
Yes, Champions League in 2016-17.
I'm struggling with this question, man.
So
Sunderland.
Who did you say, Russell?
Sunderland.
Yes, indeed, Sunderland.
Oh,
Yeah,
yeah,
that
Sunderland's
famous
a good one.
5-0.
I will actually take one from this season, Everton.
Yeah, Sydney Super Cup, Everton. Yeah.
Norwich.
Yeah, Norwich, yeah. Todd Cantwell fell on his face at one point during that game last summer. Played him a few times, actually, to be fair, over the last decade, but yeah, Norwich.
Very good. Right, I'm already struggling to actually picture anybody else, but must all be friendlies. I don't think we've played in our English team in Europe since 2010.
You sure?
Yeah, I'm fairly confident, but I just don't know who else we might have played, so I'm going to throw one out there. I'm going to say Tottenham.
Tottenham is correct. We get Horst 6-1 in a friendly that was played in Helsinki, Finland in 20.
He's totally guessed that. Totally guessed that. There's no way he's thinking, oh yeah, in Finland. I will go
in Finland,
with...
I'm a big fan of, Finland and watching games when they're over in Finland. That's something I like to look out for in pre-season.
The Ire Finishi. Right, anyway, West Ham.
Yeah, West Ham United, hologram hands, Barkas.
Oh yes, I do remember that game now. It's came back to me. Who else might we have played in a pre-season game?
He's just guessing. Jesus, it kills me.
That's quite a hard question, to be fair.
Yeah,
exactly.
I'm just trying to put pressure on you.
I mean, you're doing a good job because I'm really struggling with this. I'm really struggling. I know we. I guess. I feel like I'm just going to be chucking a name in regardless of who I say. I'm going to say Arsenal.
Correct. 2010 Emirates Cup. Lenny had just taken over as manager.
Oh, you bastard.
Mm-hmm.
I'll go with one that I know is right again. Preston.
Yeah, Preston indeed, yep.
That was a part of the Scott Sinclair, would it have been transfer deal? Was that not something to do with that? No?
It was in Ange's first summer, we got clubbed by West Ham, we lost to Preston as well. Didn't have the best of pre-seasons there. Okay, so it's 4 each now, so you're on to your 5th shot each, so squeaky bum time here, boys.
Yeah, I'm struggling. I'm just going to throw another name out there. I'm going to say Leicester.
Correct. The 2016 International Champions Cup at Celtic Park.
How many more teams?
There are still...
That's about 10. I think it was 19 to begin with. So
yeah,
it should be
10 left,
yeah.
and you need this one, Russell.
Don't get it wrong, Russell. Go and get it wrong.
Blackburn Rovers.
Blackburn Rovers, correct, yeah. Played them last summer.
I know these. I've got all my 5 I knew.
Okay, so, a potential 5 more guesses, but I have a funny feeling we're not going to get that far, but it could still be a tie after 5 more guesses.
Yeah, it could do. I mean, I think I'm really running out of options here massively.
You never had any.
I mean, I do vaguely remember Leicester. Leicester seemed about right. I vaguely thought the Brendan Rodgers connection sounded like something we might have done. What's the guess next? I shall go. I'm not sure on this. I feel like this would be obvious, but I'm going to say Man United.
Correct. 2010 United States tour. We played them. Yep.
I've got another one. I think I remember it. Fulham.
I was thinking of Fulham, but I wasn't
Fulham.
sure.
Well, we have played them a lot, but not from 2010 onwards. We went through a wee cluster in the mid-2000s where we played them quite a lot. We played them at Loftus Road and stuff like that.
This is a joke.
Yeah. So
I'm coming, Russell. One back. One to go.
Fulham
This is a shambles.
Yeah,
do you know what? I put Fulham at the end, and before that I wrote Sheffield Wednesday and Leeds. Tell me they're both wrong too.
Sheffield Wednesday was correct, Leeds was wrong. Leeds
I'd
is the
asked
Gary
them Villa.
Kelly testimonial you're thinking about, isn't it, with the 4-1 game?
Yeah, I knew that. I wasn't sure if we'd played them again since then.
Yeah.
That is
Aston
a
Villa
joke.
would have been wrong. You said Aston Villa there. Aston Villa's wrong. No played them.
Oh, good. I'm glad I said Man United.
So the ones that you didn't get, again, Brentford. There was a bit of trouble at that one where there was Celtic fans invading the pitch at full time.
Oh, yeah.
We beat them in their old park, Griffin Park. Remember when Ange took over, there was that Sheffield Wednesday game, we also played Bristol City and Charlton Athletic in that little training camp in Wales.
Who was the one? I was trying to remember. Where was it? Who was it that got injured for us in Ange's first summer?
It was Karamoko Dembele against, I think, Bristol City in that one
Bristol
of the
City.
games.
I couldn't remember the team.
It was. Now, of course, the question was any team from England's top 4 divisions, and not all the teams in the top 4 divisions are English. Cardiff City and Swansea are correct answers. We've played them in there. Yeah.
That's a curveball. That's a curveball.
The big one, the biggest name that you didn't get is Liverpool. We played them in the Dublin Super Cup. Amido Baldi scored the winner that day.
We just played them a couple of weeks ago. We just played them a few weeks ago. Oh, the Legends game. That wouldn't have counted.
Legends game, aye. So Liverpool was the biggest one, and the other one that you didn't get was Wolverhampton Wanderers. Mick McCarthy, Wolves beat us at Celtic Park in 2011 in a friendly. There you go. Wolves, Wolverhampton. Big Mick was the manager at that point. But there you go. So the score is now 14-11. 14-11 though. 14. I'm putting your point off you. 14-13 with 6 more rounds to go. It's getting very, very close, folks. Very close.
He will never have another week like that in his life where he just plucks 4 answers out his arse.
Excuse me, are you Man City and Everton? And I kind of had a feel Leicester were in there, to be honest.
Shut up, mate. You guessed 4. You had 6 answers, you guessed 4. I don't think you'll give that luck again. That's just my honest opinion.
Well,
I knew
I might not need it.
5. If I know 5 answers and you knew 2 out of your first 5, I would say the law of averages will mean I'll win more than I'll lose.
Well, we don't always do pre-season friendlies, though, Russell, do we, on this quiz? This quiz has quite a lot of different things to it, doesn't it?
Of course it does. I just said in general, if I get, you know what I mean? So it's all about the performance. I'm like Ange now. It's not about the result, it's about the performance.
Oh, you want plaudits, not points.
I performed well tonight. 5 out of 5 answers, I could remember them all. So I know I'm back.
It wasn't good enough. You sound like Mickey Beale. It wasn't good enough. You lost.
No. It's all about the performance level.
next you'll be saying I didn't win. You lost.
The gap's not as big as I think.
Oh man, never ends. This is just going to get better and better over the next few weeks. This trash talking, it's great.
Get the popcorn.
Get the popcorn out. Aye.
No, I enjoyed that. That was good. I mean, watching him pluck answers for thin air, I have got to admire his balls to do that. That was fair play. Even in Sutton Death itself, still. Pulls on it. That was fair. You deserved it, mate. You answered more
You know
right
what?
than me.
It was just an act. I knew all them really anyway. I was
Did
just playing
you?
along.
Fuck.
Played you like a fiddle.
Helsinki Cup.
Helsinki Cup. I watch that every year. The Helsinki Cup.
I mean, there you go. Russell lost, but really won, but get beat. There you go. That's that. Todd Cantwell approach.
That was it. Phil, what's happening this week? We need to do a bus stop this week. In fact, we'll do one of them. We need to do a bus stop. We've not done one in ages.
Yeah,
just because nobody's been winding us up. We'll do one and be nice. We'll do a bus stop this week.
Well, I can tell you what's happening in Bustalgia this week. It's
good.
God, yeah, it's one that's long overdue. I know people have been calling for it, but it's going to happen. Tony Mowbray season. Yeah,
I think that's good. I think it's interesting.
There is actually quite a lot of talking points because, like last week, we did Strachan's last season, and
good.
It was fine as well. But I didn't feel there's much really to go over. But that one, there's a lot of madness going on that season. But yeah, we'll be doing Tony Mowbray's effort as Celtic manager. I was going to say season, but he didn't really finish a full season, so we'll just call it his effort as Celtic manager from August till March. Then we'll talk about the Lennon coming in and steadying the ship.
Yes.
Yeah,
I'll be on Friday.
Nice one, mate.
Right, anyway, look at that grin at the bottom. What the fuck are you meant to do with that, man? Fucking hell. It's been a brilliant Tuesday ticket. Thanks to everyone in the comments. As always, the passenger keeps the bus rolling. As for Jonathan, well, I am still top of the table.
You've all that stuff at the start. You know, they won't be playing Tina Turner on the coach on the way home, will they?
Some of his comments about me deliberately trying to cause controversy. Well, I work in the media now. And you've got someone sitting there next to you who's an embarrassment to the media profession. He's an apologist. He's a charlatan. He's a Rangers puppet. He's a cheerleader. That's what he is.